Welcome everybody to Nantucket for the June 18, 2013 meeting of the Steamship Authority. To begin this morning, I'd like to recognize Wayne Lamson for the presentation of a memorial gift.
Okay, on behalf of all the authority members, port council members, many of them are here today, all of the employees of the Steamship Authority, we'd like to present this gift as a token of our appreciation and as a lasting reminder of the time spent with us trying to improve the authority's service for visitors and residents alike. So we present this to you in his honor.
Thank you for that. Our first item is approval of the minutes of our May 14th, 2013 meeting.
So moved. Second.
Motion's made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
That's carried unanimously. Our second item is the general manager's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First is a business summary for the month of April. The total number of passengers carried in April was off 3.3% compared to the same period last year. The total number of automobiles carried was off 7.4% from the previous year. However, the number of trucks carried was up 6.7% from April of 2012. Our operating revenues and other income in April were off $203,000 compared to our original budget projections. Our operating expenses and fixed charges for the month were up $1,004,000 versus our estimate. And this was due in part to a $363,000 timing difference with the MV Island Homes dry dock expense that was originally budgeted for March, and also $563,000 in unbudgeted repairs to the Oak Bluffs dock for damage caused by Hurricane Sandy. The authority's net operating loss in April was $2,046,000, which is $1,207,000 more than what we had projected in the operating budget. For the first 4 months of 2013, the authority's the total number of passengers carried was off 4.2%. Automobiles carried was off 4.7%, and the total number of trucks so far for the first 4 months are up 1.1%. The authority's operating revenues and other income for the first 4 months of 2013 were $346,000 lower than our budget projections, and our operating expenses and fixed charges were $690,000 higher. So for the first 4 months of 2013, the authority's net operating loss is $1,035,000 higher than the amount that we had projected in the operating budget. And those are the highlights of the business summary, and if you have any questions, either Bob or I would be happy to answer any questions you have.
Any questions from the board? No?
I have one question, comment. Too easy, too early to be responsive to that kind of a loss at this point. I mean, that kind of washes away as we get into the next few months easily.
It is, for example, the March numbers, the May numbers were up a little bit on the passengers and up 6.7% on trucks again in May. And for the first week of June, we're up 13.6% on passengers, 7% on automobiles, and 9.8% on trucks. So I think as we get into June and July, hopefully we'll start to see that difference, that variance come back more in line with what we had budgeted.
And the expense side should level.
And the expense side we're not expecting any additional expenses.
Thank you.
Next is a status report on current capital projects. The first one, my least favorite, is that the website redesign project. We continue to assess all of the options that are available at this point. Since our last meeting, we discovered that we could launch the new site and also operate the current site side by side with the same servers and the same reservation system. So if you booked a reservation on one site, on the new site, and then went back later on the old site, you'd still see that reservation that you booked on the new site and vice versa. So we're trying to get to the point where we can launch this new site as soon as possible. We've overcome a lot of initial issues. The load tests seem to have worked out. We've passed all the security tests that are required by the outside processing, credit card processing companies. When we moved the system over from the test platform over to the live system, we encountered a few new problems that we hadn't seen before, so we're in the process of correcting those. As we meet this morning, we're still having problems with changing a wait list request and also in booking a preferred space reservation. But we're down to some things that I think we're day-to-day at this point. But that at least when we finally launch the redesigned site, we'll be leaving the current site up for at least the remainder of the summer season, so that if we do have any issues going forward, it's not going to affect people being able to make reservations, cancellations, changes, check availability, space availability, those types of things. But it'll give us a chance to get the site out there, get feedback, and perhaps see what else we can do to make it even better.
Question.
Yes, sir.
Wayne, the situation with it getting overloaded when there were 50 or more requests, has that been addressed?
It has for the most part. In the summer, the most that we do are about 30. So the fact that the system can now do is up to 50 is a good thing. At 50 per minute, it won't handle the opening for the season. When we open for the webs, we get a big rush there at the beginning when we open up for the season on online reservations. But we've also upgraded and replaced the processor, the hardware and the processor in the last month. And so we think that will also make a big difference as well. Nothing else on the website. The other thing is the parking lot, Palmer Avenue parking lot improvements. Carl, do you want to take the board on that?
Sure. We're wrapping up. We've had a lot of good comments from the town manager, people going by on the bike path. They all seem to like what we've done at Palmer Avenue. We're substantially complete. A few little punch list items on the ice arena portion of the project. We did make a modification to one of the exit lanes, widen it a little bit. The town asked us to make a wider fire truck lane. We made the other 3 lanes a little smaller, and what we found is we couldn't get big RVs out. They were a little too wide in making the corner. So we've widened that about 2.5 feet and made the approach better on the southern lane. That was completed yesterday. We wrapped up a few more punch list items there. And the last thing that's going on is the modification to the bus entrance, the old exit and entrance to Palmer Avenue. They've cut that back. They've removed all of the asphalt. They're setting curb today, and hopefully they'll be putting in the asphalt Wednesday and Thursday, and be wrapped up on that project by the end of the week. So at that point, Lawrence Lynch will be complete. There's a little bit of fencing left to do and things like that, but the site work will be completed, and we'll turn it over to the parking people.
Yes, sir.
Carl, I thought the buses were going to use the old entrance.
They are.
So what's
we're not doing away with the old entrance, we're modifying it. Right now, it's 3 lanes across, and it's quite a wide opening, curb cut onto Palmer Avenue. So we're closing that up to make it 2 lanes only, taking the island out, one of the islands out, and the buses will use that as an entry and exit. There'll be 2 lanes instead of just 1 bus lane. No car lanes, but a bus entrance and exit. And we'll grass in where we've taken out 1 lane.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, the place looks terrific. They did an excellent job at every level. Comments from the town are all positive. Now the next step obviously is phase 2.
Right.
As soon as we can put anything on paper in terms of the schedule, the proposed schedule, I'd love to see that because we're going to be sharing that at all levels of the town.
We're meeting tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock for phase 2.
Right.
So.
We're meeting with the town at 8 o'clock next week. Everybody and their uncle and their brother is involved with what they would like to see happen here. Not that it all will be accomplished, but at least we're going to listen and attempt to comply as best we can. It's a touchy-feely thing from here on. I think the easy part is behind us.
And Lawrence Lynch, the contractor that did phase 1, is very eager to bid phase 2, and they certainly hope they get it. You know, it's in their
I would like
backyard.
to see them get it too.
Great job.
Great job.
Worked very well with us and very cooperative and working within our operation, you know.
And the town is comfortable when they see Lawrence Lynch on the equipment there. I mean, obviously, they do most of the town's work also, but they do it for all the right reasons. Thanks, good calling.
Thank you. That's all I have, Wayne.
Okay. Next is what's going to be a regular update on the feasibility study of the Woods Hole Terminal reconstruction project. And the data collection and analysis phase of the feasibility study is underway. Berto and iWorks Architects have completed a number of interviews with individual staff members as well as with community stakeholders, some from the Woods Hole Community Association, others from the Woods Hole Business Association, and they've also talked to the town planner and the town engineer. They have also started to gather information on the current and future space requirements for both waterside and landside activities at Woods Hole site, as well as the various components of any terminal building or buildings that would remain on the site under different design alternatives. So there are a number of different tasks currently underway, and we will continue to give regular updates as we go through this study phase, which is expected to last 9 to 12 months. Any questions on that? Next would be the update on Hyannis Harbor channel dredging. And I'm pleased to announce that we've been informed by the Army Corps of Engineers that they've received all of the required state and federal environmental approvals. They're expected to start the dredging on Friday, June 21st, and it is expected to continue until July 3rd. It's really been amazing to see all the various federal and state agencies working together to get this project permitted and scheduled as quickly as they did. In addition to the Army Corps of Engineers, Congressman Bill Keating, State Representative Tim Madden, the towns of Barnstable and Nantucket were all very supportive of our efforts to get this dredge work completed as soon as possible. So that's very good news, and we're looking forward to it.
Yes, sir.
Wayne?
Questions?
So we're not in this situation again. I know I asked at the last meeting, is there some way we can have a permanent dredging schedule for this channel? I mean, it benefits everybody instead of having to go through this every time it fills in.
Usually it's every 10 years or so, but it would depend on the number of storms that we get, the direction of the storm, where the wind and the seas are coming from, and
But it is usually done every 10 years?
approximately. And this was done in the late 90s, so it's over 15 years
Right.
it's due. But the problem has been getting the funding, is getting the Army Corps of Engineers getting adequate funding to do all of the dredging projects that are on their plate. So they are going to be here for this short period of time, doing as much as they can. And then hopefully in the next fiscal year, in the fall, they'll come back and do the remaining parts of the channel to widen them and make them deeper to what their permitted depth and width are.
Thank you.
Next is the proposed 2014 winter and spring operating schedules. This is a preliminary draft. We're not asking for the board to approve this at today's meeting, but we're putting it out there for public comment. The proposed schedules are similar to this past year. For example, the winter schedule starts one day later than this past year's schedule and ends 4 days later than in 2013. During the spring schedule from April 14th to May 13th, there appears to be a need for additional service. I reported earlier about the increase in the number of trucks we've seen this past year so far. And what we're proposing is to add a freight boat that would serve the Woods Hole Martha's Vineyard route on Friday nights and Sunday nights. It would be then transferred over to the Hyannis Nantucket route on Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays to run supplemental freight service. Right now, at that time of the year, we have, of course, the Eagle and the freight boat, triple crew, running 3 round trips a day. But looking forward, we think that we're going to need this additional service. And so this could be up to 4 additional trips a week on the Nantucket route. And currently, on the Vineyard route, we're calling in extra crews on the weekends, on Friday and Sunday nights, just to run extra service for us. So we're trying to keep up with the demand without putting on a whole crew for the entire week and running trips that we don't need to operate on certain days of the week. So we've discussed this with the Port Council. We'll go back, we've tweaked it a little bit from the last meeting, and we'll be going back to the Port Council at their next meeting in a few weeks and asking for them to recommend the whole schedule, this preliminary draft. We'd be happy to answer any questions, or if you have any comments about what the staff is proposing. I've included some of the traffic numbers with the traffic summary to give you an idea of how we start to ramp up in the middle of April. Businesses start to open and there's more demand for freight service. Hearing none, I think that completes my report for today.
Thank you for that. Our next item would be the treasurer's report. Mr. Davis.
Good morning, everyone. Staff summary A558 provides the guidelines that management intends to follow while preparing 2014 operating budget. Proposed guidelines are for operating revenues. We'll be basing those primarily on actual traffic statistics for the most recent 12 months. So that would be August of 2012 through July 2013. As a basis for revenues, we'll be looking at whether there should be any adjustment made for the impact of Hurricane Sandy in October, but I wouldn't expect that to be a big adjustment. Our operating expenses, proposed 2014 operating budget will be based on the preliminary winter-spring schedules that Wayne just talked about. plus an operating schedule similar to this year's operating schedule for the remainder of the year. For maintenance, the vessels will include scheduled dry dockings for the motor vessel Martha's Vineyard, the Eagle, the Governor, the Sanctity, as well as the INO. We expect no new positions to be added, and vessel manning will be in accordance with all legal and contractual requirements. Training of personnel will continue to train a fifth of the vessel crews in STCW basic safety training. We've been doing this now this will be the 6th year, I believe, that we'll be doing that, so it's the second phase. Actually, it'll be the seventh year next year. For advertising, we expect to maintain the same type of advertising that we've had, but as always, we look at what's the appropriate mix as to what that advertising media should be. Our healthcare expenses will continue to reflect a continuation of employee contributions towards the expected annual cost of their coverage, 20%. Our pension expense will include the payment for the withdrawal liability from the Teamsters pension plan that started a couple of years ago. The big unknown, vessel fuel oil. Currently, the barrel price for crude oil is trading in the $90 to $100 range. So, as of yesterday, it was up around $97, $98. A year ago at the same time, it was trading between $80 and $90 a barrel. But as a reference, a month ago, it was down around $85 a barrel. So, the fuel hedge program for 2013 is at an average cost of $3.65 a gallon. We're currently extended through the first half of 2014 at just a slightly lower amount. So I'm anticipating that we'll probably be somewhere, our hedge cap would be probably somewhere in that $3.65 range, barring any unforeseen drastic changes in the fuel markets. The policy also includes that the authority will maintain sufficient fund balances to meet the scheduled debt service payments and to adequately fund cash transfers to the replacement fund in an amount not less than this year's anticipated $6.5 million, but in an amount not to exceed our projected depreciation expense for 2013 of just over $10 million. So somewhere between $6.5 and $10 million will be the goal for that. As a last resort, the 2014 operating budget will include proposals for any additional revenues that would be needed to cover the anticipated cost of service. But as always, we go into this with the idea of trying not to be doing that. It's expected that we expect to present the preliminary draft of the 2014 operating budget at the September meeting, and then would be seeking final approval at the October meeting. At the Port Council meeting the other day, they recommended that the budget policy be adopted as proposed, and the staff is seeking approval of the 2014 budget policy as presented.
Yes, sir.
Bob, any significant differences between the instructions this year and those for 13?
We go through and we look at each of these bullets, and there were some slight variations, but again, the same emphasis that we've had in the last few years in terms of training about personnel, use of information technologies, the emphasis on the healthcare cost and the health and welfare benefits that we need to keep an eye on, and then of course the fuel is a big one. So, short answer, it's essentially it's very similar to last year's.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I looked at last year's and I looked at this one and I didn't see much difference.
There are some slight variations,
Yeah,
but
well,
there's not much.
difference, but yeah, it was actually about the same.
Yes, sir.
I'm not sure what's happening with the cost of media these days at any level, television, billboard, trend. I would hope that if we are seeing increments in costs of media, our budget will reflect those up costs. I would like to see us take our foot off the pedal on this marketing program that we have going. I think it has been certainly effective, difficult to measure as always, but I don't want to lay up on that. If costs are going up, let's have this budget move with those costs rather than dilute the program.
Yes, sir.
I agree, Bob.
Good point.
Our hedging program has worked extremely well, but I'm kind of concerned about the second half of 2014. Oil stocks are rising substantially, and I think we need to keep an eye on that. I think prices are going to be going down, and I don't want to get locked in at 369 if it's 315 or something.
Yeah, and again, that's why, talking with our consultants too, their sense is that, we should be, from a technical standpoint, they expect these to be dropping, but the geopolitical plays such a big role in it, and right now it's a lot of, because of government securities not having much, that a lot of people are putting their money into some of the commodities too, as a safe haven type thing. So
I think it's going to be going down a lot, so I just want to keep an eye on that second.
If you want to, anyway.
Okay, so we're requesting, the management staff's requesting that the 2014 budget policy statement be adopted as proposed.
So moved.
Second. Motion's made and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
That's carried unanimously. Procurement.
Under procurement, we have one item, it's the proposed replacement of computer hardware for the authority's reservation system. This is a confirming vote. During the last month or so, we've been working with IBM to make sure that the current hardware for the authority's reservation system will be able to handle the additional processing requirements associated with the redesigned website. We were able to get some very special pricing. This replacement was scheduled in our capital budget. It was scheduled to be replaced in 2014, and we had a budgeted amount of $725,000 for that. And the total cost of the hardware is $182,785, plus there's another $78,000 for a 5-year hardware and software maintenance agreement, which brings the cost to about $261,000. So it's well less than what we were earlier estimating. And we'll be getting a credit for the remaining term of the current maintenance agreement that was scheduled to expire next year with the replacement of the equipment. So under the authority's procurement policy, any purchases over $100,000 requires the approval of the board. So I'm requesting a vote authorizing this replacement, a confirming vote for these amounts ahead of what was previously planned in 2014.
I'll move that.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
That's carried unanimously. Yes, sir.
In the same vein of this, there's the dredging Vineyard Haven Terminal, AGM was the contractor. Is this the work that was just done?
Yes.
Okay. In the future, I'm hearing from the Harbor Management Committee, I'm hearing from the Harbor Dredging Committee, I'm hearing from the Selectmen. We need to look into this south side of the slip as well, what they call Steamship Shoal. Which I realize has been there a long time, but they would like to be able to utilize that area a little bit more.
Tell me, go ahead.
If we could keep that on the map.
We do have a double ender that runs in and out of there on a regular basis. And
Right.
it does require, that the vessel to be put, in reverse.
I understand.
So that, instead of turning, so it's coming in at a greater speed than a vessel that's turning in the
Right.
harbor.
Right.
But I don't know, we could look at from an engineering standpoint, what would prevent that from happening in the future.
Well, I think what's there is accumulated over many,
Mhm.
many years. I don't think this is an occurrence like on the north side.
What happened on the north side, because we were doing some work on the south side slip, the boat that winter were coming in, we're using the north side, and so we created a problem where the dinghy dock and the mooring field is there, that some of the boats at low tide were hitting
Do
bottom.
you think we're gonna end up having to do that again? Or just,
Probably not on that side.
Okay.
But I don't know, if we dredge on the south side, whether or not we won't be back there again next year or the year after,
all right.
because it's always been like that. But
According to them, it's growing. I don't know.
if it's an area that we may someday want to utilize, I don't know.
Right.
So it's in front of our parking lot, staging area is where this,
Right.
whereas this other is not really directly in front of our property.
All right.
So we can look into it.
Keep it in mind when
We
you're
can look
doing
into
anything in
it.
that area, because I get the calls. So, thank you.
Okay, next we have the Port Council's report.
Thank you. The Port Council basically discussed just about everything we have talked about this morning. The business summary, we discussed the new website and the reservation system. Carl also reported about the Oak Bluff dock and Palmer Ave lot that are being finished up. As a little addendum, the fishing pier on the north side, north of our dock, is now in the process of being built. They have pilings in, and that they're supposed to be finished by July, at the fishing pier. Hopefully,
Was that initially supposed to be that close to our dock?
it's supposedly 200 feet. I
Was
I
it
looked
supposed to
at
be
it.
farther down the shoreline?
I believe 200 was the plan.
Was it?
Yeah.
Wow.
I have not pasted off, but I told Carl that I would paste it off if I can. I'm sure that
Have you
there's,
seen it?
you know,
I have not seen it.
It's close. Looks like we're building another slip.
I'll get over there tomorrow and make sure it's
well,
not.
we can always catch a few passengers, I guess, I don't know.
I'm afraid they're gonna be casting onto our customers.
Yeah, that's, well,
It was designed as 200 feet from our pier, so I don't know. I'm assuming it is. I'm actually meeting with Doug Cameron tomorrow morning, the project engineer, so I'll verify that. I've already asked him that, but I'll ask him for
to hear
the
your feeling about it.
site plan.
yeah. Anyway, but I thought I would bring it up that it is happening. We also found out that the authority is providing free bus service between Buzzards Bay and Woods Hole for the Boston train. So when the Boston train comes in, and we'll let some of our customers off in Buzzards Bay, I believe they are also looking at the possibility of having a stop on the, what am I going to say, on the Cape Cod side of the canal, rather than on the Buzzards Bay side, which would make it a lot easier for the buses to get to Woods Hole rather than having to go over Bourne Bridge.
Where would they do that, do you know?
I don't know. That's, I think that's all in discussion.
I don't know where they would do it either. I mean, there's no Monument Beach station anymore. I think that's off the track, isn't it? There's no stop.
I don't know, yeah. That was just brought up, that they're looking at it, but whether it
If
happens
they
or not.
find something, I hope they let us know where.
It would be nice. Yeah.
Wayne, are we tracking ridership on this for us?
Yes, we are.
All right, thank you.
I think last weekend, Friday night, there were about 10 or 15 people that we brought to Woods Hole. In Hyannis, it's harder to measure because we provide a regular bus shuttle from the transportation center.
Right.
So we may be picking up other passengers in addition to those that are getting off the train.
Do the Boston buses go to that transportation center in Hyannis, or do they
Yes.
come down to the dock?
They stop at the transportation center, so we have to pick up those passengers.
All right.
make that connection. And we have a boat that leaves at 8 o'clock. So it's a tight, the train gets in at 7:50.
Oh, well.
So the Eagle is there, leaves at 8. We hold it a few minutes if we have to.
The budget policy was presented and discussed and approved, as we said. We then had our evaluation of Wayne. The overall evaluation was excellent, and I will present the consolidated evaluation during your process. I've consolidated all of ours into one so that we can add it to yours. Just as a note, our next meeting is Wednesday, July 10th in Woods Hole. It's supposed to be July 3rd, but we decided that that really was not a very good day. So we are meeting on the 10th, and it's in Woods Hole. And that's my report.
Thank you for that. Moving on, we have our own annual performance evaluation of the general manager to discuss. Yes, sir.
Want to lead off?
Go ahead.
I have a full written report which I'll pass on to Phil. But to be brief and specific, I agree with Mr. Huss. I think it was a very good year. I think Wayne continues to perform at a very high level. We're never without our hiccups. We never will be without our hiccups, but I think overall his performance is outstanding, and I have rated everything between over exceeds and exceeds, however that is continually beats expectations. Not to beat a dead horse, the only disappointment that I personally feel, and I do sense that I'm not the only one, is over this website issue. I think the ball was dropped at every level from the point at which we interviewed a provider to today. And unfortunately, the buck stops at the top. Wayne's at the top, so he's taking his lumps on that one. We're just gonna move on and figure it out. Other than that, I'm a happy guy. I think the town of Falmouth is well served. I think the Steamship Authority overall is well served. I think we have an outstanding management organization run by an outstanding manager.
Thank you.
I can't add anything to that. My view was that the performance during this evaluation period was nothing less than outstanding, and considering the complexities and demands of the position, I thought we, the board, are extremely fortunate to have him directing the day-to-day operations. In my view, we met or exceeded the criterion for outstanding in each of the evaluation categories in section 2, and it's a distinct pleasure to comment on those performances.
Thank you.
Couldn't have said it any better.
That's it?
Yes, on a scale of 1 to 80, I rated him at 73, and like all the rest, the only partially meets was the overseeing of the completion of the redesign of the website. And under the Harry Truman rule, the buck stops here. That's the only one that did not meet the point of 3 or 4 in my evaluation.
Thank you for that. I agree with everybody else. There are some very minor issues that I have that just generally relate to any organization could probably do just a little bit better. You're never fully at the top, I don't think, but I think overall Wayne's doing an outstanding job.
I should give you an average of for at least what the Port Council, in the goal setting portion of it, I think everything was at least outstanding except for website. And that we've been, discussing, and I agree with Bob that I think that was from the very get-go, and I've been saying that myself in most of my meetings. I believe that the company did a very poor job of systems analysis on that, and I think that's where the real problem is. I believe we have to go back to the company. I think that is there. Wayne is taking the brunt of it, but I believe it was their mistake. Other than that, everything else, everybody else said he's doing, again, outstanding job.
Yeah, I think generally we're in agreement on that.
So it requires a vote. I'll move the process as complete to this point.
I'll second that.
Motion's made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
We're moving forward.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to thank you for those all kind words. We operate as a team, so I'm fortunate to be able to work with a lot of good people. And there's one other thing, but I slipped my mind.
Must have been the computer thing. What's that?
Oh, but there's always room for improvement. We're constantly looking to see how we can do things better, and manage better, and provide better service. So I agree with that wholeheartedly.
Any public comment? Yes, sir.
I'm Phil Gallagher. I'm a moderately frequent user of the conventional ferry, usually about 3 round trips a month. I'm reminded of some activities which you undertook, I think, a couple of years ago, to moderate the speed of the conventional ferry. And I thought, oh my God, it's always going to be late, but I kept riding it. And it was always on time, and it was almost always on time to within a minute or two after you instructed your captains to moderate their speed. And I remember hearing reports given to you that you were saving money on fuel because the boats were going closer to the scheduled time. They were, namely, going a little slower. Now, because I invariably am in a time bind when I get to Hyannis, I'm pretty conscious of when we get there. It's either a bus or a variety of reasons that I have to get there on time. It is my impression over the last year that the Eagle or the Nantucket is getting in about 5 or 6 or 7 minutes early. Now, obviously not on the days when the tide is wrong, but I think the discipline that the captains were exerting when you gave them their instructions a couple of years ago, I think it's slipping a little, and you might be able to save some money on fuel. But I would like to ask you to check the times, and give them warning, and say, listen, we'd like you to do it in the scheduled time and see if you can save a little money. Give them a little warning and check the times. It might save some money for you. I think it's just sort of slipped a little bit because you were really strong about it back in those days, and you saved some money. I'd like to see you try it again.
Thank you for that observation. Yes, sir.
Wayne, is there a schedule for the dredging, and how might that impact service during, what's obviously going to be a very busy travel week?
We're not expecting any interruptions. We understand we're going to have to work around the dredge, and the dredge's going to have to work around the other ferry operators that use the channel. So they're aware of that. We're making our terminal and our docks available to the Corps of Engineers if they have to replenish supplies or whatever needs they have over this period of time. But we don't expect to be losing any trips as a result of the dredge work that has to be done.
Something that'll largely be in between or at night?
Both, I think a combination of both.
Thank you.
Anything else from the public?
I have one thing.
Yes, sir.
Just wanted to make everyone aware that the Steamship Authority is being honored by the Rotary, and they're building a float that's supposed to be look like the original island home and for the 4th of July parade in Edgartown.
I expect pictures.
They want you to ride on the float. In costume.
Okay,
You're the chairman, man.
I'll be there. I'll be there.
On the bridge.
Anything else from the public?
I'd just like to say, on behalf of Flynn's family, thank you so much for remembering him with the chair. We really appreciate it. Thank
We thank you.
He's still here with us.
Okay, now I have a brief statement to read. I'd like to entertain a motion to go into executive session to discuss the authority's strategy with respect to contract negotiations with non-union personnel and with respect to pending and anticipated litigation and collective bargaining matters, because a public discussion of these matters may have a detrimental effect on the authority's bargaining and litigating positions. These matters include the enforcement proceedings by the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection for the authority's alleged violations of the activity and use limitation on Fairhaven Vessel Maintenance Facility, the authority's negotiations with the Independent Steamship Authority Workers Union regarding the authority's unlicensed vessel employees, the authority's negotiations with Teamsters Union Local 59 regarding the authority's licensed deck officers, the proposed July 2013 salary increases for non-union personnel, and the authority's employment contract with Mr. Lamson. The members may also conduct contract negotiations with Mr. Lamson in executive session. The public disclosure of any more information with respect to these subjects would compromise the purpose for which the executive session is being called. And after the conclusion of the executive session, we will reconvene in public. I'm going to take a roll call. Do I have a motion on this?
So moved.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. I'll take a roll call. Mr. O'Brien?
Aye.
Mr. Hanover?
Aye.
Mr. Marshall?
Aye.
Mr. Tierney?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. We are adjourned into executive session.